Hey, what's up YouTube? John over here with Element Automotive. Just working on my NBS 2003 Chevy Suburban. Over the past couple weeks, I've been experiencing a little bit of a vibration and I didn't really know what it was. Got underneath the truck, kind of just looked over everything and thought I might have had a bad U-joint or something like that. I went and looked at the U-joints, everything seemed good. Moved them, shook them, didn't see anything at the time. Thought possibly that I was having a transfer case go bad. I picked up a used transfer case. I've had it on the side of my house, haven't got it, but the truck's been operating fine with that little bit of vibration, so I just left it. Today, now that it's been probably a couple weeks driving with the vibration, I decided to get underneath the truck to see what was going on, and to my surprise, I found a completely broken U-joint, and I've still been driving this every day. I'm very surprised that the truck has honestly kept going, or has kept going under these circumstances, but it's still working, and I'm going to kind of show you the process of the replacement of the U-joint, as well as what it caused as a result of the U-joint breaking and the vibration. And I think now I am going to have to replace the transfer case as a result, or get the one that I have at least rebuilt. So this is my 2003 NBS Chevy. I picked this up for $2,200. It had a blown rear differential on it. It didn't have these wheels on it, but it was lifted already. It has a 6-inch rough country lift. At the time, it had 18-inch wheels with 35s. I do plan to get another set, but the wheels that were on it currently, or at the time of purchase, were the wrong offset, and someone put some spacers on it, and they were just causing a really bad ride in the truck. And I think they were just because they weren't hub-centric spacers. These wheels are currently 22 by 12s, and they are on 35 1250s with 22-inch size. You know, they don't really stick out too bad. No spacers on them or anything. Pretty good offset with the Z71 model having the actual fender flares. You can see from the back they do sit pretty good. But, you know, I'll get on to what I'm going to show you in regards to the U-joint. Just want to give you an overview of the vehicle that we are working on. All right, so down here, got down, you can kind of see here's the rear differential, rear axle. You know, in here looks all pretty standard, nothing going on, no play, no movement in the vehicle itself. You know, U-joint seems tight. Sometimes these are actually kind of hard to tell when they're under the vehicle because they have a little bit of load on them. Sometimes you can rock them back and forth like this and you can see a little bit of play. But if you really want to make sure there's no flat spots on the U-joints or anything really going on, you really just need to go ahead and pull the drive shaft off. Two 11mm bolts on this side, 11mm on this side, or 7/16, and it'll take that right off, and you can really see if there's any flat spots in the needle bearings or anything inside the actual U-joint itself when you press it out. Or you can do it the old-fashioned method, which is what I'm going to do on the front one. It shows where you just get a socket, put it inside there, and hammer it out. So here we are looking at the front drive shaft U-joint as the yoke goes into the back of the transfer case. You can obviously see there's a pretty bad leak here. I think it was already leaking probably because the seal was bad, but now that the actual U-joint has broken, which now you can see in here, the actual broken U-joint, and then, you know, aside from it just being completely broken, you could actually see it flexing, especially if you were to move the vehicle forward and back just a little bit. And you can hear it kind of pinging as it's moving back and forth, just pinging and popping there, making some weird noises. And I just can't believe that I've been driving this for 2 weeks under this condition and did not notice that snapped inside there. Just wild. So I'm going to pull this apart. Hopefully the drive shaft itself is not damaged, and I can go ahead and just get this swapped out and, you know, be good to go. I'll walk you guys through the process on it. I'm definitely going to need to get a new seal there. And like I said, I do have another transfer case that I'm going to end up swapping it out to. It's another used transfer case, but You know, for the price of this truck, it looks pretty good. I don't need to put a bunch of money into it. The truck has about 230,000 miles now. I just want to keep it maintained and drive it. I enjoy this vehicle as it is. All right, here we go. Just loosening these. One thing to note is if you're going to take your drive shaft off, make sure that the vehicle has its parking brake on, just because if it doesn't and you remove the drive shaft and the vehicle's in park, once you take the drive shaft off, the transmission's obviously going to no longer be locked and you're going to have the vehicle potentially roll away. So just safety precaution there. Make sure you guys do put the brake on and make sure it's actually working. I know a lot of times on these vehicles, the parking brake is not so great. All right, so I'm just continuing removing the bolts here. This is for the rear U-joint. The front is a slip yoke, so it'll just pull right out of the transmission. I only bought one U-joint just to replace the front broken one for now. If I do find out that this rear one is shot as well once I remove it, I'll go pick up another U-joint and replace both of them.
You probably should do anyways, but...
Just got a flathead screwdriver here and just pry the shaft forward just a little bit. There you go. Popped out. Just make sure you don't, if any of these caps fly off, make sure you don't lose any of the needle bearings inside there. Just when you go put it back on, it'll mess up. So at this point, go ahead and pull the shaft out of the back of the transfer case. Now, so I can kind of feel that this thing has a little bit of play in the back of the transfer case, up and down. That could be due to the vibration. It wore the bushing on the inside of there, which is also why it's leaking. But I'll worry about that a little bit later once I go ahead and replace the, like I said, the rear seal. See if it ends up leaking more. If it does, then I'll know that the internal bushing is damaged and I'll need to replace that. So as of right now, you can kind of see a little bit better what's going on. All right, now that I got the drive shaft out, you can see kind of what's going on. What it looks like is the cup itself looks like it cracked. It's been like that for quite some time. Probably just finally gave out, which was enough to keep this kind of inserted inside it, but enough to keep to where it has a lot of movement, and that explains why it didn't fully break off and, you know, let go. But definitely destroyed and froze up right now. Please excuse the shop. This is my little side shop I built. It's just on the side of my house. It's real small. It's about the only place I have to work on some vehicles. Got a little side projects going on. Kind of got a mess right now. Bikes and storage and everything else in here. So got to build some shelves and organize it. Been working on this Acura Integra for a little while. Did a timing belt, transmission, some other stuff for a customer. You know, but I'm gonna work on this little bench here. Figured I'll throw the drive shaft on there and be able to use that bench vise and kind of just the edge of the table itself to beat the U-joint out, hopefully, and kind of go from there. I'll walk you through the process. All right, going through and inspecting the rear U-joint right now, and this one right here, you can tell it has play in it. I think the needle bearings are flat, and this one actually feels good, where it's not moving back and forth. Everything seems to be okay on it. So I'm gonna see kind of what the best option is for this, but really I think I need to replace this U-joint. It seems like it's pretty stiff and these got play in it, so this one needs to come off. Looks like it's been pretty dirty. It even looks like, I think the play's coming from the needle bearings are flat spotted on one side, probably from basically the grease just getting old and then not rolling anymore.
and then it spins without the needle bearing spinning. You can hear it. That's flat spots. All right, got you set up here. Kind of show you what I got going. I got a 19mm socket here. Basically just gonna hit this side of the drive shaft. I got it set up on this table right here, but I got this board set up on the end because of the taper. So this is just kind of gonna keep it so that, you know, it's not jumping around on me and bouncing up the back side of the drive shaft. Okay, one step I forgot to mention that I did want to note on here is that there is a retaining clip on the back side. So these have to come out in order for the U-joint to be able to slide through the other side. So there's a clip that needs to be removed. My cup is actually broken on this side as well, which kind of makes sense because of the U-joint moving around so much, basically just destroyed everything. So this one is completely disintegrated on both sides. U-joint's broken, so I'm just gonna kind of just pop everything apart and break it out of here because it don't matter at this point. Just need to get it removed so that I can get the new one put in place. There you can see the cup literally disintegrated on its way out. This thing I think has obviously been wearing for quite some time. I don't think this is something that just went out on me, even though I've only really been able to experience what was going on in the last couple weeks. From what I can tell by this U-joint, it has been like that for quite some time. The U-joint itself is almost completely halfway worn through. So some Chevy power for you right there. Again, you can see the needle bearings. And this cup completely rusted. It's been like this for quite some time as well. No oil, no grease in there, I mean. Definitely needs a good cleanup, and I've gone through, see if I can get this cup back in, and then kind of go from there. All right, so here's the rear U-joint. Like I said, these are all pretty much worn and shot. There's play in them, but this is completely seized. I've even tried to hit it with a hammer just to see if I could break it free, but it does not move at all. I actually did a little chip right here on the bottom side trying to tap it with a hammer, and this rear one is completely shot as well, so this will have to be replaced. But on top of that, I do believe that I'm actually going to have to replace the whole drive shaft itself, because where the U-joint was broken, it rubbed through, and now there's a weak point right here on this raised area. All right, a few hours later in the day, what we got going is I ended up having to pick up another drive shaft. Ended up getting it off of OfferUp. Spent $40 on it, drive shaft straight. It was out of a wrecked vehicle. Existing U-joints are actually in really good condition on this one, no play. The end caps were missing on here. This U-joint from mine is completely seized, and the end caps on here I'm actually just going to borrow and put them over here. I know they had a little bit of play, and the cups have a little bit of flat spotting on them on the inside where the needle bearings are, but I'm going to just move them over here for tonight, and this will get me by until I can actually just go and get some time during the day where I won't be basically hitting on this with a hammer in the middle of the night in order to just use my vehicle the next day. Like I said in some of the earlier videos, the reason why I had to replace this is because right there you can see where that U-joint was hitting where the cup broke. It actually kept hitting this, and I'm worried that this is going to be just too thin to drive around on that, and then this actually ends up cracking as a result, and or putting the cup in is not going to actually like stay in very well as a result of this being damaged. So I'd rather just be on the safe end and get another drive shaft. Again, this yoke on this side is actually in really good condition, as well as the U-joint. So I'll end up replacing these with some newer ones later, but this will get me by for the next week or so, just to get these done. Right here I'm working on just cleaning up the cups, like I said, that were from the old one. I put new grease in them for now, wiped down the bearings themselves, and at least made it so that when I do put them on, even though there's a little bit of flat spotting in the inside of these, they're going to be better than putting the old drive shaft on or trying to make it work. So this is a nice little temporary setup. Here you can kind of see the old bearings completely taken out, and I've already greased the inside of this one, cleaned it up, but you can still see some of the scarring from where the needle bearings had been sitting kind of in a seized state instead of rolling freely, because the grease was so old. And I mean, this grease is so old, it's literally keeping these all completely stuck together. So I'm wiping them down, getting them ready to go back on. And I mean, on this side you can already see this already fits significantly better. I can still feel it a little bit rough, but so much better than it was in the other one. This one doesn't move at all. Literally, that's how much space this has. I'm surprised this didn't bind and break as well. Okay, ended up having a little bit of a project update. Tried to go install the drive shaft inside the truck, and because I took these cups off of the other U-joint, they're not actually the same. So if you can see, there's a little bit of a shiner there, which doesn't allow them to go all the way in enough. So this actually doesn't fit onto the rear axle because of these little clips right here. I think you could remove them, but I don't want to run it without it, because these are the clips that prevent it from going out. Even though they're going to be strapped down, this wedges it between the bracket that's on the rear axle and the little hanger part that bolts down over this. So it looks like I'm going to have to just go ahead and replace this whole U-joint. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, since I know I have to replace this U-joint now, is I'm actually just going to heat this up a little bit in order to hit this out with a hammer, get it to push through the other side. I'll loop it after I heat it. Okay, so this is what we got going so far. So right here, there was these little like plastic or kind of like a nylon plug. I drilled those out with like a 1/8 inch bit just to clean those out. You can kind of see where I went into the cup there. And then on this side, I used an 1.1/8 socket to support the bottom of the drive shaft. And then I used a 19mm impact socket to hit this through on this side. And you can see it fits in really good on the nut side, and then I used the flat side to hit with a hammer, and then that popped through right there. Okay, so what I got going now is I have to flip it over and then beat the cup back through the other side here. So what I'm doing now is I'm still going to use this 1.1/8 socket, flip it over, support the bottom of this here so that the cup can drop into there. I lube this, so I'll center this up now. I've already removed the cup off this side. So now what I'm going to do is tap this back again. So you can see I kind of hit it back in there. It's kind of centered now. Make sure I put some more lube on it as it goes through. It's still hot, so that's why I'm wearing gloves. Once it gets kind of starting to slide through there, what I'm going to do is put this back, and then again use this socket. Actually, then we use something a little bit smaller, like this ball peen hammer here, just to kind of get the last little hit on it. So now you can remove the cup. Now the cup's out, you can actually slide the U-joint completely out. So this is obviously how you do it without having any grease on here. Okay, so I was going to talk about those little holes right here. These are, I believe what they are is a a factory mold injection in order to hold the factory U-joints in to ensure that they don't move. And what you can see here is you can see how they did like a mold all the way around on both of these, and it's actually still inside here. So this is like a kind of like a nylon or something like that, from what I can tell. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to go ahead and take and just clean these out a little bit. The new ones don't need it. The new ones have retaining clips. What I did for the new one is I got Moog U-joint here, and it has retaining clips on the insides of all 4 of these in order to keep them centered so they won't vibrate out. So the factory ones don't use retaining clips here. They just use this injection. So when you do take these off, you need to drill these out because these are going to be very difficult to beat out without drilling that out first, just because it's basically connected to this all the way around where they, factory molded it in there. Okay, one thing I did want to mention here on this Moog U-joint is on one of the sides it has a hole in it. And what they did is they filled the grease with that goes through here and keeps all these nice and lubricated. It does come with a little tiny screw. Go ahead and make sure you put that screw in, because if this is left open to the elements, obviously dirt will get in there. But on top of that, the U-joint will heat up, and then all that oil, or excuse me, all that grease will end up coming out there almost like in a liquid form once it gets warm. Okay, here is the little screw placed into there. I'm going to go ahead and press the retaining rings on these sides, and then I'm going to make sure this fits in my rear axle housing. Okay, so this is what I was explaining before. So because these cups didn't go all the way back here on the other U-joint that I had, these little clips, I couldn't put them on. So what I was worried about is there's not enough pressure on these little straps to hold this U-joint in place side to side without having those on here. So I actually put this on, and I've been driving without those little clips on for probably a couple weeks now until I was able to get some time to replace this again. And the old U-joint that I just took out did shift to one side, and it actually was causing another vibration. So my theory of saying that these straps don't have enough force to keep this on there is correct. You need to have these on in order to keep your drive shaft centered in this carrier. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put the new U-joint in. Pretty much the same process as far as taking it apart and putting it in, except for the fact that what you're going to do now is you're basically just going to remove these 2 on either side. Make sure you're very careful not to lose any of the needle bearings when you take these off. Set them to the side, and then you're going to go ahead and put this into the drive shaft, and then you're going to put the cup into that. So I like to just kind of hold that in place. I like to put this under there because my drive shaft is a little bit tapered here, so I don't like to hammer on it without it having some sort of rest point. A little bit of lube on the outside there. Remember, you just want to hit this just enough through to get that clip on there. Once you get that clip on there, there's enough space to get that clip on there. You just take and push it on like that. Make sure you got enough of it in there. It drops down all the way. I think it's good. Go ahead and flip drive shaft over now. Now you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, throw a little bit of lube. Take and put this retaining clip on here. Now while you're taking it from the truck to, from the shop to the truck or wherever you're working on it, make sure that you don't drop these and fall off, walking back and forth. I've done that before. I've had them fall off and roll into the dirt, and then, you know, then you got to take the whole thing apart and clean it. So, you know, you can, if you know you're going to store it for a little while or something, you just go ahead and set this in here. Go ahead and put some zip ties on each side around here. That'll hold the cups on if you're going to store it. If you're doing a rebuild, otherwise, you just be cautious walking back to the truck and go ahead and throw it on. Okay, so I'm back under the truck, and what I'm looking at right here, here's the back of the transfer case, and you can see this one's been leaking a while. I'm going to go ahead and replace the seal on this one, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what's causing the leaking, because the old drive shaft was so bad it might have actually damaged the seal on the inside of the transfer case here. I'm going to go ahead and replace it and see if it leaks after that. If it doesn't leak, then at least I know it didn't damage the bushing on the inside of the transfer case. And this is pretty cheap. It was only $16.99 at AutoZone. So I figured it's worth just going and giving it a shot, swapping it out, and then if it continues to leak after that, then I know I'm going to have to rebuild the transfer case. But fortunately, I do have a spare transfer case for this truck. Okay, one thing I did want to note, I got the rear seal out, and I actually purchased a seal from AutoZone, and it was the wrong one. It looked almost the exact same, but the seal that I'm using is this seal here, and this fits perfectly in here. So if you're going to get a seal, make sure you get this one. There was 2 available. The first one I got did not work. Okay, got the drive shaft in. It's just slipped in there right now, and I put the truck in neutral so you can rotate the drive shaft, so that when you're over here trying to line up the rear U-joint, you don't fight yourself trying to put it in. So just put a wheel chock under your wheel just to make sure that the truck don't roll away on you, and go ahead and get that lined up in there, and then put your straps on, and then you'll be able to put the truck back in park once this is lined up. One note is what I do on these is I actually rotate this clip around, because there's actually a groove on the back side of here for those to sit into, instead of being actually on the saddle. So make sure you rotate these around, and then they'll stay in that position before you put everything on. Okay, here's the front yoke, the new seal on. Everything looks good there. Make sure I clean this up so nothing's gonna rub or leak or be debris in there that could cut that new seal. And then here's the rear, all bolted on, torqued down. Like I said, the clips are on, the little saddles are on. Everything looks good on here.
All right, guys, well, that was the last of the drive shaft install on the 2003 Chevy Suburban. If you like this video, I'll be doing a little bit more tutorials as I get some new projects. I'm going to try to get in some additional builds. I got a couple boats I'm building and some new stuff coming down. Just please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit that bell. Get some notifications as new videos upload. Thanks for tuning in.